The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Geoff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Geoff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at geoffbanks.bet. And by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.
Welcome on to the Final Furlong podcast as we shine the spotlight on the Breeders' Cup, two of the best days racing of the entire year. There's going to be over 80 international contenders this year, so we need a lot of help stateside. And we always have American experts on. This year, I'm delighted to say that we've got the host of the best American horse racing podcast. Sorry, Naomi Tucker, just cover your ears, Naomi. We love you, Naomi. You're brilliant. HHH Podcast is absolutely essential viewing and listening to get you set for the Breeders' Cup. And I'm delighted to say that its host, Howard Kravets, joins us on the show. Howard, you are welcome to the Final Furlong.
Thank you very much, sir. Emmet, I appreciate the invite. I'm very excited to talk about the 2024 Breeders' Cup at beautiful Del Mar Racecourse in San Diego, California. And I will be there as well in person, along with many of other podcast hosts and co-hosts on the HHH Racing Network. So very excited to be here. Thanks for the invite.
First cheat sheet question for you, though, is how vital is the draw at Del Mar, and over which distances do we really need to factor it in?
Well, that's a great question. I know that, the majority of your viewers and listeners are there in the UK, etc. Del Mar is an interesting track. I think one of the ways to think about Del Mar is think about a paper clip. It's the turns are relatively sharp. And the stretch run is not very far. Obviously, most of the tracks here in the U.S., the stretch is much shorter than tracks in Europe as well. But at Del Mar, it's particularly short. So what does that mean? That means you're going to see horses probably make earlier moves, especially on the turf. You don't want to wait until they turn for home to make your run. You want to make your move probably as you approach that far turn at Del Mar. There is time to gather and find a hole, so to speak, and rush through at the end. But, if you wait too long and you're covered up for too long, you might not get there. And what William Buick and other fantastic jockeys have realized that you do have to move a little bit sooner in the States. And you've seen these jockeys become more aggressive on it. So I would say, the races that you want to pay attention to, especially based on the configuration in Del Mar, is probably the 5 furlong turf sprints. That's a relatively short run into the turn, and the turn is relatively tight. The mile dirt race, which I don't think we're going to see any Euros, but we'll see some Japanese horses. That's a short run into the first turn, although that's a 2-turn event. And then there's other races that have fairly long runs into the first turn. So it's very situational. I think the mile race with the Juvenile Fillies and the Juvenile Turf on Breeders' Cup Championship Friday or Future Stars Friday, you really don't want to be wide there. A horse named Hit It a Bomb, which you might remember several years ago, won a really talented horse from like the 11 or 12 stall, I believe. But that is a rarity. So you're best being drawn inside stalls 1 through 5 or 6 on most of the races, I would say.
We'll come to Aidan O'Brien's juvenile talent in a little bit. You're going to be talking to him. We're going to be talking to him on the Final Furlong podcast as well. Very much looking forward to that. I want to jump straight away to the Breeders' Cup Classic. From our perspective, it's all about one horse, and that's City of Troy. The thing that amazes me is 3 of the top 5 in the morning line betting in the United States are not American horses. Right. And your morning line favorite is the same as our red hot favorite. We're 7-4 City of Troy. You're about 2-1 morning line. Does that make sense to you, Howard?
Frankly, no. I love City of Troy as a horse. And, we don't have to laud the praises of Aidan O'Brien. He's obviously one of the best in the world. You can argue the best trainer in the world. But this is a horse, Emmet, as you know, that's never been on dirt. Now, I know this is a justified colt and the breeding size will fit. And, they went to Southwell and tried to sort of simulate a little bit. That was not, they're doing what they're trying to do at Ballydoyle, but let's face it, he's never taken real dirt in his face. He did break from American Stall, which I thought was good, and he did comfortably rate in behind. So there are some things that lead me to believe that he'll handle the dirt, but isn't 7-4 a bit low for me to see if he can handle the dirt against what I would say is a above average to good Breeders' Cup Classic field this year.
Does he have the gate speed to be able to get that early position? Because if he is going to win, in my mind, he needs to make the running.
We've had this conversation here in the States often. I'm sure you have that conversation, overseas, all across the pond. It's hard for me to say. My first instinct is no. He's quick out of the gate, but it takes him a few strides to sort of gather, it seems to me, in watching him on tape. I think if you're a City of Troy fan and you're going to be punting on this horse in the Classic, you really want an outside post. You do not want to see this horse, in stalls 1, 2, 3, or 4, because he's going to be going anyway. But if by chance he doesn't quite break perfectly, or just other horses are quicker, if he's on the inside, Emmet, he's obviously going to be taking a lot of dirt then, correct? If he's in the 9, 10, 11 hole, he can break half a step slower, not be quite as quick, and be comfortable 2, 3 wide on the outside. So I think that would be in his best interest to draw wide. And I'm sure Aiden will say we just want to be comfortable. It doesn't matter if we're on the lead or sitting in behind, which I understand. But I think fans of City of Troy, you want this horse in a comfortable position on the outside. I don't think this horse will be nearly as good if he's got to take a lot of dirt in behind.
By Justify, a Triple Crown winner, but out of Together Forever. It's all turf.
Yeah, yes.
Goes back to Galileo, goes back to Sadler's Wells, Theatrical Mare. I would love it if he goes and does it. It'd be amazing, but he's taking up such a chunk of the market. So the question then becomes, who is the horse that will benefit if City of Troy doesn't quite get it done? Because as far as I'm concerned at this point, if he wins, magic. I will enjoy watching that on Sky Sports Racing and Racing TV. I can enjoy him going and winning the race. But who are we going to make money on, Howard?
So I'll tell you a very short story that I don't believe your listeners probably are aware of. It's absolutely true. You can go on X and look at my handle at H Kravets, or you can look it up for yourself. Way back in November of last year, before our Kentucky Derby, I had a future bet on Sierra Leone, which I'm sure is a horse you folks know. We had him at 150 to 1, Emmet, in our podcast. And I was there in person. It broke my heart. And I have the ticket to prove it. So that was brutal. We were alive to, about $152,000, myself personally, about $50K. The reason I bring up that story is not to relive a nightmare. Yes, it's absolutely true. Not to relive a nightmare, but the horse I like in the Classic this year quite a bit is the horse that was playing bumper cars with Sierra Leone, and that is Forever Young. I really like Forever Young in this spot, Emmet, for several reasons. I'll be very brief. He's talented. I like the break they gave him. He came back and run 1.25 miles in Japan, did it well against a good field. He's talented. He can be tactical. I don't think he has to come too far behind. And in this Breeders' Cup Classic this year, as we talked about, this is not a brilliant classic. There aren't any super duper stars unless City of Troy completely freaks, which is possible. I think Forever Young's got a big shot, and I'm probably getting 5s or 6s at post time.
I agree with you. I think it makes sense. Had they been not Japanese and incredibly respectful of American racing, they almost certainly object to what Sierra Leone did, and they almost certainly get promoted. But they were respectful because they're Japanese. That's how they go about things. They accepted the result on the day and left it as it was. And I happened to watch that comeback run in Japan the other day. He's not very impressive, but it's a prep run. They're just blowing the cobwebs off him and getting him ready for this. And from memory, you don't actually want a horse putting up a big performance before they go traveling, because it takes a lot out of a horse to get there. I'd recommend, there's a lot of track work that goes on. I would recommend watching that, because you show everything in America. Everything. It's amazing. So we'll get to see how he's striding out on the dirt during the week, but he's really, really interesting for Forever Young. I like that. Is there an irony here? I feel obliged to ask this now. Is there an irony that this actually might be the one race that really sets up properly for Sierra Leone, and that he gets the full pace to aim at? Or is he just off the Christmas card list? Forget about him.
I'll tell you what, Emmet, I've chased this horse for quite a while because he always makes his run. I mean, Sierra Leone is a very good horse. There's not about it. He's a little quirky, right? He had trouble switching leads. He was lugging in a lot. They've tried blinkers. They've tried a lot of things. And so he's come up short a few times with my money, which has been unfortunate. I'm not going to say I'm fully off him, The problem in the Classic this year, at least in my opinion, I'm not sure it's going to set up for someone coming from behind or a closer. Del Mar, especially in the summer, was very speed favoring. Now we have to see how it's going to play at the Breeders' Cup, but going 2 turns, you don't want to be too far back. And although Sierra Leone doesn't have to be in last by any means, he's going to need some pace up front. And so we're just going to have to see. There is some pace in the race. A lot of it will actually depend on City of Troy, right, Emmett? I mean, if City of Troy breaks, are they just going to send and just say, I don't care about anyone else, I'm just going to go? If that happens, the pace is going to heat up. So I would not completely rule out Sierra Leone, but I've seen the story too much with him, and I think he's more of an underneath type.
I would like the camera to zoom in on MV Magner if Sierra Leone gets up and chins City of Troy on the lines. It's like, technically speaking, they win, but I don't think they'd be massively happy about that, to be honest.
No, that would be interesting.
Yeah, that'd be a spinning the narrative for sure. Let's go back in time. Let's go to Friday, Champions Friday.
Sure.
Future Champions Friday. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. So we have the entries. We're recording this on Wednesday evening. Whistle Jacket is in this race. I kind of thought they were going to stretch him out. There's no question he has the form. I do have a slight question mark, though, about him coming back to 5 furlongs. He looked a little bit flat against Shadow of Light, but that form worked out really well. His stable companion, Ides of March, is in here as well, who's a very, very interesting horse. But essentially, is this all about the Irish and the British horses? Asterius and Big Mojo, there's very little between those two. One is a shorter price than the other this side of the pond, which confuses me a little bit. But what's your overall take on the Juvenile Turf Sprint?
Well, I don't want to upset your viewers and listeners at home, but I'll tell you what, this Japanese horse, Okoro Sieg, could be serious. This horse worked 9 seconds and change at our sales here as a early 2-year-old this past, I believe, was March, was sold for a good bundle of money. He's run 2 6-furlong races in Japan, has set a track record. He has the fastest 6-furlong 2-year-old juvenile turf time in the history of the JRA. I've seen both replays. He is very quick. And the fact that he's turning back in distance, Emmett, from 6 to 5, Okoro Sieg is going to be a serious player. Now, can he beat the Irish horses and your British horses? I'm not sure, but that is the one I'm actually most interested in right now. The break is obviously extremely important going 5 furlongs at Del Mar. I mean, Asterius is very good, obviously also. So Big Mojo, they've been banging heads correctly all season long. It's a fascinating race, but as of this very moment, week and a half out, I'm going to go with the Japanese horse in this race.
5-1 on this side of the pond. We like that, yeah. Okoro Sieg. But preference would be for a low draw?
Yes. You don't really want the 1, though. The rail is dicey, right? Because if you don't break great, that could be trouble. I think ideally you want to draw between 3 and 6, 3 to 7, especially for speed horses. In the 5 furlong turf sprint.
John Deere Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Again, some horses we know. You and I will know more about this in a few hours after we've spoken to Aidan O'Brien. I would be amazed if Lake Victoria goes for this. If she does, she's a stone cold solid moral. Don't complicate your mind. She just goes in. Good night and good luck. Who would you be keen on?
Yeah, there's a few horses in here that I wasn't expecting to go. I know Heaven's Gate for Aidan, correct, is very talented. I would assume that she's going to go, obviously, if Lake Victoria does not go. There's a few other horses that I need to look at, and Shoda from Bubbling. These are horses that were not originally in the pre-entry or sort of talked about here in the States. So I want to do a little more research. I will say from an American perspective, Destino d'Oro is a very nice, probably I think our best filly here in the States. She's more of a closer. She likes to come from behind. Her closing sectionals are very good. And she finished a very tough luck 3rd in her prep race at Keeneland, in which I was there, where she had tons of trouble. So keep, for your viewers there across the pond, if there's an American horse that you might fancy and wager on, Destino d'Oro would be, to me, the best American. But I have to do a little more research, frankly, on horses coming in from your neck of the woods.
Okay, I thought it was been really clever. I took 10-1 plus about Heaven's Gate. 10-1, 12-1 with Henri Matisse. They're in a patent with opera singer. The double is alive, but not as healthy as I wanted it to be. The FanDuel Breeders' Cup Juvenile. if these horses all stand their ground, this is going to be one hell of a race. The one that really interests me is East Avenue, but he's been well identified on this side of the pond. He's the favourite here. I believe he's the morning line favourite stateside as well. But if Godolphin are going to have and look, Charlie Appleby, different kettle of fish entirely. He's got an unbelievable 50% strike rate, 20 runners, 10 winners at the Breeders' Cup. We'll talk more about him in a few minutes, but this guy might be Godolphin's best chance.
I got to tell you, I'm a little bit against this horse. How about that? You're not going to kick me off the show, are you?
Let him off!
let me. I love Godolphin, by the way, and one of my wonderful co-hosts on the HHH Racing Podcast, Paul Halloran, is writing a book about Cody's Wish. And so I've been to the Godolphin headquarters in the United States, and we know many people with Godolphin. It's a great organization. Wow. So obviously this is not hatred against Godolphin. I will be brief for your punters. East Avenue is 2 for 2, and I was in person there when he won his prep at Keeneland in Kentucky. His first race, he went to the lead and really didn't face much at all. It was an extremely weak field. Now, the field that he beat the last time was a better field, but again, he got loose on the lead. There's a horse named Ferocious, who's a very nice horse here, that had trouble at the gates and didn't break well. And East Avenue just went right to the lead and walked along the track. He's very good, but there is some other early speed in this race. And I'm not suggesting East Avenue, Emmet has to have the lead to win, but this is going to be a much tougher race, and he's going to be the favorite. So I'm a little negative to East Avenue in saying that he can absolutely win the race. I like Chancellor McPatrick. This is the other horse that's going to take a lot of money. He's been ultra impressive. And there's also one more horse I'd mentioned, Jonathan's Way, who is an Ohio bred. So it's sort of obviously it's a breeding that you wouldn't necessarily think would be of this caliber. I'm looking at Chancellor McPatrick and Jonathan's Way, one of those two, to upset East Avenue in our juvenile.
Okay, well, I'm following you in, unless one of our experts next week goes, no, he's wrong. Just get back on the Godolphin gravy train, East Avenue all the way. But for now, definitely bowing to your superior knowledge. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. This is a race I am fascinated in. I think Henri Matisse is probably a horse that I would have told you going into ARC weekend, he will just crush this lot. And then I learned a very valuable lesson. Don't get overly attached to horses. Sometimes they will disappoint you. Man, did he break my heart the last twice. But I don't doubt he's the most talented horse in the race, and I think he will outclass them. I've just had my fingers burnt, not once, but twice. So proceed with caution. So for all that, at 5-1, I can see the class is there, and he's probably the best horse Aidan has run in this race since Mendelssohn. What is your view on the Juvenile Turf?
Yeah, this is a race that Aidan, I think he's won it 6 times, I believe. Interesting enough, he's only won the Juvenile Fillies once with Meditate, which is sort of interesting that, with one particular sex, he's done so much better. I'm looking at the anti-post odds here as we speak, and they have, according to the site I'm looking at, a New Century is 5-1, Alcudra 7, Henry Matisse 8-1. How does that sound right now? Monumental, that's the other Aidan, correct? I believe is 14. I'm not too familiar with him. You could obviously speak to him more. I do like the Godolphins here. I do need to do some more research on Henry Matisse because I thought some others were going to be going. I think New Century is pretty talented. Beat Alcudra at Woodbine. I will say also specifically for the viewers there in the UK, the American contingent in the Breeders' Cup Turf, Juvenile, as I like to say on my show, no bueno. I'm not real good, in my opinion. I'd be very, very surprised, Emmet, if a foreign invader, if a Euro does not win. And I don't think it's going to be a Japanese horse. I think it's certainly going to be one of the horses from Ireland or the UK will win the Juvenile Turf. I'm not sure which one yet. I'm going to have to do a little more handicapping on it.
Okay, we could get a presidential candidate to just go, not good, believe me, not good, for the Americans. That, by the way, that was a horrible impression. I can do that so much better, but it's late.
I was going to ask you who that was an impression of. But
yeah, that could have been her, to be quite honest. It might as well have been. Oh, dearie me. Right, to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, as we switch to the Saturday. Okay, so we've got some very good horses going over. Bradsell is...
Yes.
We finally got a sprinter who can win 2 Group 1s back-to-back. Fine, manna from heaven. Won 3 races back-to-back, 2 of them in Group 1s, and he went really close on ARC weekend. But Believing has been screwed by the draw so many times this season. Finally, it will eventually go her way. But are either of these horses, and I'll throw in Big Evs as well, obviously a returning Breeders' Cup hero, are any of those three going to be able to live with this Cogburn?
Cogburn is arguably the best turf sprinter in the history of the United States. We have not been turf sprinting, since the mid 1900s. I mean, turfs, obviously, we've run grass racing a long time here in the States. We've never really been known for our turf sprinters. Obviously, our dirt sprinters, very good. Cogburn is, I think you could make the argument, is the best turf sprinter in the history of the United States, but has not won a Breeders' Cup yet because he is not. I don't think, was he the Breeders' Cup last year? I have to double check on that.
I don't think so.
He's very good. I don't think he was. He's very good. I have nothing against him. Broke a track record at Saratoga, going 5.5 furlongs. What is that? 1,100 meters in under a minute, which is completely insane, even on a firm turf course. But you know what? This is a turf sprint, and I just don't trust turf sprints. I mean, what is the margin for error going 5 furlongs, Emmet? Even in turf sprints in overseas, even on a straight, it's not much, right? One little stumble, one little steady, you can't find a hole. There's just a very small margin for error. And while Cogburn is extremely talented, I'd be slightly against him. Bradsell's really good. I mean, it's just a question of him becoming healthy, right? Isn't that the main? I mean, he had a lot of layoff lines. He's just very good right now. I will throw one American horse that I am very, very interested in at a price, and that is a horse called Notorious, who is a 5 furlong specialist, loves Del Mar, won the local prep for this race. I think Notorious, who does come from behind, if they really do go quick, is a very interesting medium to longer price horse in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint this year.
Okay, we can get 16-1 about Notorious. If we were to just go with the ratings agencies, you've obviously got the buyer figures, which are unbelievable. Racing Post ratings go, for the context of this race, they go 140 RPO Cogburn, Bradsell 138. To give you some, to just look at his actual race performances. For Bradsell's win at York, they went 124 for his Group 1 win in the Flying Five at the Curran Irish Champions Festival, 124 again for Bradsell. Cogburn got a 125 and a 126 for his last two. But time form, they see it slightly differently. They give Cogburn a 121, Bradsell a 124.
Really?
One of them is 5-4, the other is 7-2, and we're getting 7-2 by Bradsell.
Well, can he handle a bend? I think that's the big question.
That's the big question.
Right? I don't know what has he been prepped? Was he at Southwell, or I know some have gone to Kempton to prep. What have they done to make sure he goes around a bend?
I know Ed Walker had his horses at Kempton the other day. I don't know if Archie did, but we can look into that for sure. But the bend is going to be a key factor. When Glass Slippers won this race for Kevin Ryan, she already had form around a bend at Chester. And that was one of the big things that Barry Faulkner was emphasizing. Like, this horse has already done it before.
This is going to be a full field, I'm assuming, which means about 12 or 13. Bradsell, you do not want to draw outside of 10. It's almost, you're going to be wide in that situation. Again, 3 through 7 or 8 is where you want to draw going 5 furlongs at Del Mar.
If Big Evs gets one of those positions, does that bring him back into it?
I don't, he was really good last year. I have to admit that I didn't love him last year in the Juvenile Turf and sprint, and he proved me wrong. He's very good. I don't compare it to his age group. I don't think he's quite as good this year. I don't know if you feel the same way. Like, as a 2-year-old, he was better than the other 2-year-olds. Now that he's 3, I'm not sure. He hasn't really blown me away. I don't know if you guys out there would consider his year disappointing or not. I mean, it's been solid, but not spectacular. I'm a bit against him at this point.
I think you could look at him as a horse that maybe the attitude to have with him was he was just a juvenile and he'll do well to train on, and actually he's outperformed. But you could also look at him as this was the horse that was coming into the new season as the sprinter, and it just hasn't really happened.
Yeah. I think that's fair. That's fair.
But we might end up getting a price on him, and I'm not telling you that we won't be taking a key interest in him on the day. The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Geoff Banks Bet, where tradition meets cutting-edge technology, and with major flat racing festivals on the horizon and the new jump season about to kick off properly, it's time to leave behind the corporate bookmakers who don't value your loyalty. At this point, you've got to be fed up of their restrictions, endless affordability checks, and losing out on incentives just because you dare to win a bet. Geoff is the bookmaker fighting for your right to bet, giving you the freedom to enjoy British and Irish racing the way it should be, and you can watch all that racing on the Geoff Banks Bet app. So say goodbye to bookies who want you to lose your hard-earned money on their online casinos, and say yes to unbeatable odds and a bookmaker that truly values your custom, Geoff Banks Bet. Final Furlong podcast listeners who sign up to Geoff Banks online using the promo code FFP500 can get 10% of any net losses returned as cash after your first month of betting up to £500. It's an offer you won't see anywhere else. Visit geoffbanks.bet today and enter promo code FFP500 and join the excitement. That's geoffbanks.bet using promo code FFP500, because your betting experience deserves more. This is a paid advertisement from BetterHelp Therapy Online. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you've no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you've ever been in therapy, then like me, you know how beneficial it can be. But it's not just for those who've experienced major trauma. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills and setting boundaries. Therapy empowers you to be the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a registered therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. With almost 5,000 therapists in the UK already, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise. Visit betterhelp.com/furlong today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/furlong. This is a paid advertisement by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/furlong to get 10% off your first month and get on your way to being your best self. Breeders' Cup Turf 2022 hero Rebels Romance, who's had a fantastic season, 6 Group 1s in total, 3 of them this year, including his most recent in Germany, which is the exact same prep race he used to take this race in 2022. He was a significantly bigger price, though, when we were putting him up on the show back then. There was actually a row between myself and 2 of the other pundits. I was in the Rebels Romance camp. I think that might be the last winner I tipped on the show. So we'll just lean into that, shall we? But he's in and around 3-1 here. But there was a point made on your excellent podcast during the week. Has a 6-year-old ever won the Breeders' Cup Turf?
6-year-olds and up. Are we ready for this? In the Breeders' Cup Turf, 0 for 55. Let me repeat that. 6-year-olds and up in the Breeders' Cup, in the history of the Breeders' Cup, which is 40 years, Emmet. This is not a small sample size. I'm a math teacher. I'm an educator. I know numbers. That is not a small sample size. 0 for 55. I think there are a lot of reasons for that. Certainly, I'm sure you have horses that it can run very well at 6, 7, maybe even up to 8. Stayers obviously are more keen to obviously the jumps. You get horses that are older. This race is meant for younger horses, so to speak. 3, 4-year-olds, 3-year-olds have done very well in this race. That is a stat I cannot ignore. And I was, by the way, Rebels Romance, Emmet. Not only has he won those Group 1s at three different countries. How about that? Yeah. He's a complete world traveler, right? And he ran a hole in the wind in Dubai as well, beat Shahryar. What's interesting about this race is there's a lot of the best horses are not there, right? Kalandagan won't be there. Economics won't be there. There's horses, Auguste Rodin's going to Japan. I have to say, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the connections across the pond, this is one of the weakest European entrants in this race I think I've seen in a long time.
Oh, I agree. It's hard to cut across you, Howard, but
usually have zero chance in this race in general, unless we have an up to the mark or a bricks and mortars. We've had some very nice horses recently. Our best horse is Farbridge, who I didn't think had a chance to win this race. After looking at this field, I mean, am I really, if you're an American punter, are we really afraid of Rebels Romance, of Illinois? Jai Rebbe's an improving 3-year-old, but is he of this class? Luxembourg, I don't think he wants a mile and a half, frankly. Shahryar is not the same. I mean, who are you really afraid of in this race? This is a very difficult race. It's completely wide open. And even Roshan Park, who's a talented horse from Japan, he's inconsistent, but he's run some big races. I don't know. This is a completely wide open race to me. I don't think Rebels Romance is he's 3-1 listed right now. I think he should be at post 5-1, 6-1, in my humble opinion.
I would agree. I think if you consider last year's race where we sent over Augusto Dan obviously wins, Mostadaf, King of Steel, and now you look at any one of those three would be favourite for this. Any one of them.
Yes, no doubt.
I don't.
I just think, and I find it interesting because the purse is so good. You're going to get firm turf. It's usually not been a problem, right? Usually, now look, there's been arc runners that have been sent over, right? I don't think there are going to be any this year. I don't believe. I don't want to speak out of hand.
No.
So I don't know. I think part of it could be the Champions Day was 2 weeks ago. Well, it's only a 2-week difference from Champions Day to the Breeders' Cup this year. Usually it's been 3 in the past, if I'm not mistaken. That might play a factor as well. We'd have to talk to the connections, obviously, in Europe. But this is just not a very strong European contingent coming over this year, which I guess makes for a better betting race for the punters, right?
Well, this might be the year that a 6-year-old finally goes and does it, because there's no doubt in my mind Rebels Romance is the best horse in the race, but I can't quite get away from that stat either, though, and it just makes you feel like he is a horse who's going to be vulnerable. Illinois is a stayer. Now, I did think it was interesting that after he ran on ARC weekend, immediately Aidan O'Brien said he can drop back and trip. I think he actually said that after the St. Ledger, because the only thing you would have been thinking of up in distance, I just wonder if he's coming in here because there's nothing else for him, essentially, and they probably don't want him taking on Kyprios in the Gold Cup next year, so we'll find out more from the great man himself. I am interested in Luxembourg. If he gets loose on the front end, we saw what he could do in the Coronation Cup, and wouldn't it be easier to stay 12 furlongs in America at Del Mar than at Ascot, maybe?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. What I was actually going to mention, you mentioned Illinois being a stayer. Because of the track configuration at Del Mar, you do want that quick acceleration. Now, going a mile and a half, maybe not as much, but it's not really a stayers type of turf course because of the tighter turns, right? It's not really wide and sweeping like a Belmont used to be, or Arlington Park. I'm live in Illinois, coincidentally, and 20 minutes from Arlington Park. God rest its soul. But
what a travesty that was, by the way. What a track.
Yeah, beautiful. We've been there. You've been there, Arlington?
Never got to go there, but used to watch the Arlington Million every single year. I distinctly remember Suleimani getting the race and the crowd booing after storming home, was first past the post, but unseated crossing the line.
Wow, impressive throwing some names out there. Anyway, Del Mar is tighter turns, and you do want that quick acceleration. Remember, Yabir won 3 years ago with a nice turn of foot in the stretch. So we'll see. I suppose Luxembourg can get the distance, but they're not going to let him just walk on the lead, are they? I mean, if he's going slow, isn't Rebels Romance right off him? If the pace is slow, in my opinion, that's how it would shape out. So that's the interesting thing about this race, Emmet. The Euros that are coming over are more front runners, right? They, more tactical. Maybe that's on purpose. Maybe that's purposely done.
It could be. This is one of my most favorite races of the year, and again, we'll big up. Well, I should actually be bigging up this one. This should be a promo. In fact, I had the TriCast in this race last year with the trifecta, and was ridiculously bullish about it. Oh, don't worry, I gave it all back because I'm a dum-dum. But
you had Shahryar in third, huh? That's a nice. He ran big that day. He's back again.
Yeah, he did, and he's back again. And as you were pointing out the other day, it's been quiet for him. Maybe that's deliberate. Maybe he's just been quiet, and there's been a bit of an issue with him. But it's certainly interesting that he's a full horse. They're still going with him, and it's been a quiet preparation. And this is weak. Like, this is a weak year. So,
I hope I'm as right as I was last year because, and again, people are like, "Who's this Howard guy?" You can watch my show. You could find out. I'm wrong, just like the next guy all the time, right? I mean, this is a very tough game. Augusta Rodin was my play of the entire Breeders' Cup last year. I'm in a contest called the BC, which some of your viewers or listeners might have heard of. It's the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. It's a live money contest where you can basically bet on our betting platforms, Win Play Show, Exacta, Top to Exactor, the TriCast, etc. You can play doubles, one race and next race. Anyway, I went all in on my bankroll on Augusta Rodin. That was my play of the weekend. So I was very happy when he came up the rail. And thank you, Shayar, for coming off the rail and allowing Ryan Moore to come on the inside to win that race. But Augusta Rodin was very talented. He didn't need too much luck. So I don't have a nearly good feeling on this race.
No, that was actually. By the way, thank you, Christian Demuro. That was a massive assist. Yes, we really appreciate it. If you can do the same again this year. By the way, is that what happens? If I do a thumbs up, the StreamYard just do it back for me. It's so weird. It just randomly. Fireworks went off the other day.
Some program. Not for me. I think it depends on your computer, not StreamYard, I believe. But anyway,
no, it's not doing it. I don't get it. But the reason I was mentioning that is I was so bullish about Augusta Rodin. I was basically rowing with Tim Carroll. I don't feel that way at all about this race. I genuinely, I'm so confused by it. Let me ask
you a quick question, if I may. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You mentioned Luxembourg going to the lead, maybe wiring the field, possibly. Isn't Jair Rebbe going to be forward?
Yes, he will.
Just not as quick as Luxembourg, in your opinion? If they want to?
No, if that happens, William Buick will love life because he'll just sit in behind, but so will... Who's going to be on JRB? Apologies. I should know that. Sean, of course. Yeah, Sean will just love life as well. The more I think about this, actually, JRB is probably the play. The form of the economics is good. He was really good on Arc Weekend, and look who's in behind him. The horse who comes out and wins the Champion Stakes. Now, I don't doubt for a second that Amnat did not fire that day. But Brian Means just gone down under and won a big Group 1 there with a horse that would not be good enough to win a Group 1. Kind of makes the whole point in Europe. But he was able to win a Group 1 down under. And every single time this man travels a horse, they overperform and they're always underplayed in the market. So for me right now, JRB is the pick, but subject to change. And by the time we're doing the full preview on Thursday, I may very well have a different attitude. I would again highly recommend watch the HHH podcast, but also the Breeders' Cup, those morning workouts. There's so much gold info you can pick up.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I was so super keen on Augusta Rodin was how well he was striding out all week.
Very good.
Yeah.
I apologize for the mispronunciation of the name as well. So probably won't be the first time. By the way, just to let your viewers know and listeners, we have a preview for the Friday, for Future Stars Friday. Our preview show will be live. Of course, it's going to be a little late if you want to watch it, but you can watch the replay, of course. Ours is going to be Monday night. This upcoming, that's the 27th. I have to get the date. Anyway, this upcoming Monday, and then our preview for the Saturday races in general will be next week, Tuesday night. Just to let your viewers and listeners know, we'd love for them to subscribe to the HHH Racing Podcast YouTube channel. We're also on listening platforms as well.
Nice promo. HHH Podcast, Friday Breeders' Cup, Monday night, Saturday Breeders' Cup, the main event. Tuesday.
Actually, it's Tuesday and Wednesday. Did I say it's Tuesday, Wednesday? I apologize.
Tuesday, Wednesday, even better.
Monday's the draw. I'm sorry. I'm already done a lot of shows. Next Tuesday night is for Friday. Next Wednesday night is for Saturday. Greatly apologize, everyone.
Well, I'm going to send you a clip of the draw that was done for the Derby at Epsom by the great Nick Look. It's awful. That man has been around the world at all the glamorous events, and they put him in what can only be described as a clown show with marker, ping pong balls with marker written on them to determine which draw City of Troy was going to get. My God. When you see it, you're going to think it's a SNL sketch. There's no way you'll believe it's real. But Nick Luck, obviously the best presenter of the business, and he'll be doing that draw for NBC, which should be a lot of fun.
They need to take after the draws that you see in the Middle East. You see these draws they have in Maidan, and they have like golden statues that the trainers come up, and it's like on the bottom, and it's like gold plated. It's oh my goodness, it's a whole other world there.
Gold plated Lamborghinis driving around in the background as well. Okay, which racehorse are we backing to win the Breeders' Cup Turf so that we're driving around in gold plated Lamborghinis?
Wow, you're gonna put my feet to the fire here, huh? You know what? I have to go with a little bit of a price. I'm going to throw the Japanese horse. Let's say Roshan Park for right now. I have to do a little more research on him.
Okay.
He's run some big races, and this is completely wide open. And I believe he has fast closing sectionals. So I'm going to have to. He beat Equinox. I mean, he's one of the few horses that beat Equinox, I believe. I don't want to misspeak. I think I'm correct about that. I know that was last year, and it was a big upset. He's very talented, but he's inconsistent. Maybe he can put together on the biggest day, and we get 16s or 17s. I'll throw Roshan Park out there. How about that?
Okay, I'm liking it. And he's a 5-year-old, so he fits the trend profile as well.
Yes.
Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Normally this would be before, but this year it's after. Okay. I thought Emily Upjohn was going to be a good thing for the Fillies Champions Turf. Obviously, she wouldn't have been. Kalpana was a machine there, but the form suddenly looks brilliant. She's third behind Aventure and Blue Stocking, second and first in the Arc. And Opera Singer has broken my heart by coming out of this race. So I'm sure you're going to be all over her stateside, but are you with her?
This is another tough race, I'll tell you. I'll tell you who I'm not with is Didia. I do not like Didia, as we spoke of, I think, before the show started. I just don't think she's nearly as good. I'm also negative to Soprano. Soprano was supposed to win the QE2 here when she came to Keeneland last month. I was actually a bit against her. I know the connections. George Bowie, they think that she'll like the distance. I need to see it. I don't think Soprano's going to enjoy going longer. Obviously, they know the horse a lot better than I do. Cinderella's Dream is an interesting 3-year-old for Godolphin, but the 3-year-old filly races that she won here in the States, Emmet, were not very strong. Unless she really steps up her game, I don't love her. I know that Aiden's running Content, and I'd love to hear your opinion on Content, because if she's running, now she just ran 2 weeks ago, right? And then she ran only a few weeks before that. So she's had a very busy fall campaign. Maybe it was the soft ground that she didn't appreciate, and she'll enjoy hearing her feet rattle. You'd have to believe Emily Upjohn right now is the horse to beat. And Warlike Goddess is literally a war horse here in the States, who got a horrible trip, last year or two in this race. I'm not sure she's the same, though. I'd have to go with Emily Upjohn right now. I hate to, chalk out, so to speak.
Yeah, I would have been completely with you with Emily Upjohn and think, look, this is the horse that they all have to beat. Look at the form. She's been second to Blue Stocking, goes and wins the Arc. She's just behind Blue Stocking and Aventure. They're first and second in the Arc. How can we trust her, though? How can we trust her? And it's the price, Howard. If you're getting the 10-1 she was for Ascot, okay, great. She was 9-1 the last day. She might go and do it, and what a blaze of glory it would be to go out. This will be her last race, shoots the lights out in America. Maybe she goes and does it. Maybe. I'd need bigger. I'd need a bigger price.
Yeah.
Content is fascinating.
But compared to the field, Emmett, I mean, I understand you want value. We all want value, but I hate to say there's not much to beat in a $3 million Breeders' Cup race. But again, this field is I mean, unless you think a horse like Ylang can step up, or the American horses, again, just not real strong. The American distance turf horses, I don't want to be too disrespectful, other than Farbridge, are just not very good. I mean, just not very good at all this year. There's been years where they've been great, not this year.
Okay, I want to be clear. That's Howard saying that. It's not me saying they're rubbish.
No, that's me. And I'm an American. I'm a bloody American.
Yeah, I'm not the one coming on a podcast saying, we're going to crush the Americans, but we will crush the Americans.
No.
Warlike Goddess is a nice horse. I'd be amazed if she was good enough to go and win this, though. Content is interesting to me. It's primarily because what is going on. Like, you've taken her to the ARC meeting. She was well beaten that day, but if you watch that race back, Christophe Soumillon gives up round the final turn. She has a pretty handy enough race. And actually, Ryan Moore does something very similar. It's just not happening, and Ryan is very kind to a horse that's not going to... There's no point in beating a horse up for a fast-finishing fifth. It's like, if it's over, it's over. That's why City of Troy and Auguste Rodin were beaten the lengths they were.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Looking after him for another day. And this is going to suit her. And it's an Aidan O'Brien filly. They have an incredible knack of being able to bounce back.
Yes, and in a short amount of time, too. This is not the first time he's done this.
Yeah.
She's interested. If she's coming, we'll find out very soon, as we're filming this again on Wednesday, the 23rd. We're going to find out in the next 24 hours, probably, if content's actually coming or not.
If she goes, I'd roll the dice with her at 10s. We can get 12s.
Oh.
The firm that are going 12s normally have an in. and they're normally right. So maybe she's
How do you feel about Soprano? Do you agree with me? Or
Yeah.
I know Bowie's high on her, but I don't see it at this distance.
They were incredibly high on her the last day, and she just got obliterated. I'd be amazed
She did,
if
but
she was
she
now.
feels pretty ran a huge race, but she lost by 5 lengths. I mean, it wasn't even close.
Yeah, she wasn't. It's not like she was a fast finishing second or closing. She just seemed to be obliterated. You mentioned Ylang Ylang. Now, that's a horse that's becoming very expensive to follow. But if you go back through what's happened with her earlier this year, she would have had no chance in the 1,000 guineas because Aidan's horses all needed their first run. She then gets injured in the Oaks. It's a controversial comeback run where eventually... mouth words failing me. Effectively, they say, look, we just needed to get a run into her. Then she's well talked up for Irish Champions Festival, and she runs a big race there. And I think that the wheels just did not spin at all last time out. This might be one last hurrah for Ylang Ylang, and you can get 16-1 on this side of the pond. That is not a filly that should be sent off 16-1 in a Group 1.
To me, Emmet, and you have a much better sense of this than I do as an American punter. When you have trainers like George Bowie, Aidan O'Brien, they're not coming over. These are not roughies. They're not coming over, just for a jolly good time. They're coming over here to win. And so I have to, because I've seen it too many times, even from American trainers. If they're coming over, they mean business. They're not going to fly the horse all the way over. There's a lot of talent here. You have to take these horses seriously. Otherwise, especially a guy like Aidan, who's, I wouldn't say he's conservative, but is very heady. He's very smart. He's very well-tempered. He's not going to, he's not sending a horse over so that the ownership can have a good time in San Diego on the beach.
Yeah.
They're coming over to win. So a horse like Ylang Ylang, and again, I need a little more research, although I did watch some tape. If they're coming, I think you have to take them seriously.
I think it was about a month ago, just before we go into the final race, one of the best American pundits is the Racing Post's Ron Wood. And he went out of his way to write a whole article about how one of the best bets for the Breeders' Cup, in his eyes at that time, was Ylang Ylang for the Filly and Mare Turf. And everybody was talking about content and opera singer. Nobody was even mentioning Ylang Ylang. He could see something that other people couldn't. That's still in my mind, and she should be very much in the forefront of people's minds as well. 16-1 is too big in my mind. 11:45, Saturday night, FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile. Carl Spackler. Is he gonna go and beat the 2,000 guineas winner, the hugely impressive French performer in the foray last time out, Ramatuel, and the triple Group 1 winner for Dundalk O'Brien, Porta Fortuna?
This is the race of the weekend. How about that?
Talk to me.
This is the race I'm looking forward to the most, and it's not necessarily because there's a Goltakova. There's not a superstar, super duper star coming over. You just mentioned a few horses. They're coming. Ramatuel. These 3-year-olds are talented. Ramatuel is very good. Obviously, there's American ownership with Porta Fortuna. Notable Speech is listed. Yep, Notable Speech is planning on coming. What about Diego Velasquez, who's come alive in his last 2 efforts? I mean, these are really nice Euros, and the fact that they're 3 is exciting because obviously they have a future ahead unless they're going to be going, to stud. The males we'll see. Hopefully not. Too many American horses do that. Another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Carl Spackler is a very popular horse here. Of course, named after a very famous movie character here in the United States. One of my favorite horses in training, who I saw last time in person, a horse called More Than Looks, who ran a blinder at Keeneland. Really fast closing sectionals. This is one of the fastest closers in the world, to be very honest with you. He hasn't quite put it together on the win end, but if they go hot up front, More Than Looks is a very talented American horse. He's very interesting to me. I mean, you got Mountain Bear, who completely freaked. This is a freaky horse. This horse acted up in the paddock, and I guess does it quite a bit. I saw him in person. Geo Romanica is a very nice filly here in the States for a guy named Chad Brown. You might have heard of him. We know Chad.
Really, he's all right.
Yeah. He's got also a Philly chili flag who's entered right now. I see Geoglyph entered from Japan if he goes. Henry Longfellow, I don't know if he's going to go or not. I haven't heard Aiden speak much of him for this race, but he is pre-entered. So we'll have to see. This is just a really fun race, Emmet. I'm looking forward to this race almost more than any other, frankly, in the entire weekend.
Well, it's a fascinating race, though, to try and unpick. And look, Diego Velasquez has come good. They've realized he's a miler. He's not a middle distance horse. Although it's interesting in the sense that his brother was second in the Breeders' Cup Turf, so the pedigree is there for him to go and do it. And he certainly has speed. The horse he beat the last day has come out and run very well. Won, in fact, in Cork. Mountain Bear has gone to the States and run a massive race. He needs a really fast pace to be able to aim at, which he will get. And he ran a monster race at the Breeders' Cup last year, went second behind his stable companion. There's two horses that stand out for me. I'm a massive Donnacha O'Brien fan. If I win the Euro Millions this weekend or a massive amount of money at the Breeders' Cup, Donnacha O'Brien is one of the people I'll be putting a horse in training with. Eddie Lynham as well, and try and get a sprinter over there for some speedball fun. But Porta Fortuna,
quite a bit.
Porta Fortuna is a fascinating one. But isn't Ramachuel just boiling at the right time? And it's Charlie Appleby and William Buick. They just win. They're the two that, and annoyingly, they're the two that are the shortest prices in the race on this side of the pond.
Well, that foray was, wow. Was that explosive
Stunning
turn of foot? There's still in the back of my mind that thinks she might be better on soft. I don't know. We're going to have to see. She also, she barely lost to Porta Fortuna early in the year, correct? When they moved, the jock moved a little bit too early. Was that the dip at Newmarket, I believe, if I recall? She moved a little bit too early. Looks like you had Ramachuel that day. You don't look too happy. Sorry to bring up a nightmare for you. Why
did he do that? What?
I don't know. He just moved a little bit early. I watched the replay several times. The mile shouldn't be a problem, but is she better going 12 to 1400 meters? I don't know. I don't know what it is about Porta Fortuna, and people listening in your neck of the woods might say this Howard guy is crazy. She doesn't really have that quick acceleration turn of foot. She's very good. I don't want to take anything away from her, but she seems a little more grindy. She doesn't blow me away. I don't know what it is. Visually, she doesn't do it for me, but she's so accomplished. I'm probably just being a knucklehead.
No, I agree with you.
A horse like Ramachuel to me is a little bit more interesting. One more horse I do want to mention for your punters at home. Johannes is a very talented American horse that people need to keep an eye on. He's got a very good acceleration and he's tactical. He's sort of like our Porta Fortuna to some extent, a tactical horse who's got a nice a late kick and is in excellent form. So Johannes is another American horse. The American contingent in this race is very good. So the Euros, they better put their running shoes on because this is just you can go 7-8 deep in this race from punting wise and maybe still not have the winner. This is just a fun race.
Them's fighting words. I say as I'm wearing literally American flags on both sides of my sleeves. It's like, what am I doing? Like, obviously the Carl Jungian projection is just there, like lean into the American stuff while then cheering on Team Ireland and Team Britain and Team Europe the whole way through. Fascinating Breeders' Cup Mile. I'm very much looking forward to unpacking it. And again, just very briefly, draw is going to be crucial.
Yeah, straw is crucial. Again, we talked about it. Master of the Seas won last year from the 11 gate, I'd like to say.
Buick.
But he was a closer. So if you like the Porta Fortunas of the world, the horses that are going to be Henry Longfellow's more tactical, correct? Wants to be a little bit closer up. Obviously, Spackler. Those horses you don't want to draw outside of 10. Their drawing inside is absolutely fine because the mile there is a bit of a run into the first turn. So actually you prefer to be inside. One through 4 is excellent in the mile races at Del Mar.
Okay. Your nap of the Breeders' Cup 2024. But before that, where can Final Furlong podcast listeners find out more about the excellent Howard Kravets and the HHH podcast? And do you by any chance happen to have like a Breeders' Cup, I don't know, cheat sheet or a form guide for us?
How nice of you to ask. First of all, my X handle is at H Kravets. Perhaps you can on one of your sites or somewhere you can have it spelled out. It's Kravets. And it ends with an S, which is a little bit unusual spelling. So Twitter handle at H Kravets. We have an excellent website for our podcast. It's HHH hhhracingpodcast.com. Very simple, one word. And yes, we do have a breeder. We have several what we call Power Picks tip sheets. The one you're speaking of in particular is only for the Breeders' Cup. It's a Breeders' Cup Power Pick tip sheet. It is only $30 US. That's it. $30 US. It's over 30 pages. That's right. You heard that correctly. Over 30 pages of handicapping tips for all the punters out there. We have what we call ABC or betting grids where we give our opinions. We have best bets. We have roughies. We have vertical and horizontal types of bets. Every 14 Breeders' Cup races, every single one, we do a write-up. Anyway, it's 30 pages plus. It's only $30 US. Just go to our website, hhhracingpodcast.com. One word. There's a banner at the top where you click on, and you need to do that before next Wednesday. So the deadline is Wednesday, October 30th, Emmet. And I believe it's noon Eastern or New York time. So around 6:00 p.m. your time. So why wait? Why wait a week? Go ahead and just, when people hear this, just sign up right now. We do send it through people's email. Very simple. So you do, and you leave your email in the the chat portion when you pay for it in the notes section, and it comes through your email. Highly recommend it. And of course, our shows on YouTube. Just type in hhhracingpodcast.com and subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have many more shows coming up.
The more I watch American racing and the more I listen to your show, the more I'm loving it. And the level of data and information that you guys have, it's magic. It's just absolutely superb. Highly recommend it. HHH Podcast, highly recommend everything that Howard has said there as well. The big question, though, for you, Howard, is who is the best bet? Who is the crush of the Breeders' Cup 2024?
It would be easy to say a Cogburn. He'll be 4 to 5. There's a horse running in the Filly and Mare Sprint that probably will be favored, but won't be too low a price. I'm hoping to get 9 to 5 or 2 to 1. And that is a horse called Ways and Means. This is a very talented filly for Chad Brown. Again, it's in the Filly and Mare Sprint race. It's a 1,400 meter or 7 furlong race on Saturday. Ways and Means, all in. I'm hoping to get 3s or around 2 to 1. Even if she goes as low as, let's say, 8 to 5, 1.4, I would still, or 1.6, I would still bet her. Ways and Means is my play of the weekend in the Breeders' Cup.
She has been ridiculously good on her last couple of starts, and we can get 5 to 2 about her on this side of the pond. I don't know if that's going to hold up, by the way.
I'm going to call. Can I put a bet in there?
Ring, ring. Hello, Geoff Banks.
You know any bookies out there?
I'll get you sorted. Howard.
Right.
We can get you a custom. We might have to edit this bit out and lie to Geoff and pretend, he kind of half fancies her. Yeah, it's just he just wants to have a fun bet. He's a bit of a donk, doesn't really know his... it's too late. Geoff's going to know. Ways and Means, 5 to 2. I don't think you're going to get that on race day, but you can take advantage of it right now. Yeah, okay. We're taking advantage of this right now. And you're going to be talking to Aidan before I am.
Yes.
Because you're up much earlier stateside to talk to him than I'm chatting to him afterwards. So you're going to know whether or not Lake Victoria is going for the Juvenile Fillies Turf before me. You have to send me that DM if that's the case. And, that's the double because they'll both win. It's easy game.
There you go.
But I don't think she'll go. So we'll learn more, but Ways and Means, nap. Howard, thank you so much for joining us. I very much enjoyed your insight. Please, God, we'll get to talk to you again on the Final Furlong podcast. All the best with the Breeders' Cup 2024. And, of course, all the best with the HHH podcast. Keep up the great work. It's really excellent.
Thank you, Emma. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
And thank you for listening and watching this episode of the Final Furlong podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. More Breeders' Cup content coming your way, including with the GOAT, Aidan O'Brien. He's on the show next. And some more Breeders' Cup previews coming your way very, very soon as well. From Howard and me, we'll talk to you again soon. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
Crush your bets.
The Final Furlong podcast is proudly brought to you by Geoff Banks Bet. Get up to £500 refunded as real money for new Geoff Banks online accounts after your first month of betting. Use promo code FFP500 at geoffbanks.bet and buy BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Our listeners get 10% off your first month. So give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/FURLONG.